I'm Glenn Caballo. I live in a small Scandinavian town, and when this story began, I had a good job as a process engineer at the local branch of a large international company. I met Caroline Steelman at a friend's wedding. Nothing happened there, but I took her phone number and she took mine. To my great surprise, she called me a week later and invited me to dinner at her place. I agreed and went with a bottle of wine and a big red rose. Her apartment was fine, the cooking was great, and we had a really good time. In fact, we had such a good time together in bed that I even had breakfast in the morning before I went home. Of course, I was happy to have met such a sexy girl, and I kept dating her and getting great sex. After a few more dates, Caroline told me that she was in love with me and demanded that I be honest and tell her how I felt about her. I looked her straight in the eye and told her the truth. I was in love with her too. After only 4 months, we agreed to live together in my house. A house I was able to buy thanks to a little money I won in the lottery. After we moved in together, Caroline suggested we have a gorgeous wedding on the 10th anniversary of our first date. I was fine with that. I even agreed to her demands for separate bank accounts and let her print out very detailed terms and conditions about who should pay for what. Although it seemed a little odd, I accepted her suggestions mainly because it ensured that my house would be protected as private property if we went our separate ways. A few little warning bells rang right after she moved into my house. I was a regular guy, not an experienced Casanova, and so I had some doubts. I was concerned that if a guy like me could sleep with her after the first date, what could a real, experienced womanizer do? This was especially true if he met her at his natural hunting grounds, such as conferences, corporate parties, or bachelorette parties. There were no suspicious signals, and the warning calls soon fell away because Caroline and I had a good relationship. In fact, it was much better than many of our friends. Caroline and I promised to keep our family out of trouble, and after every divorce we witnessed among our friends, we even grew closer. Caroline became pregnant, and we had our daughter Alice. However, no one is 100% perfect, and we faced our first serious marital problem after 8 years and 7 months together. As in so many other relationships, it was economic issues that put Caroline and I on the warpath. Our problems began when the company I worked for moved all of its production and most of its local administration to Portugal. My job and over 600 other jobs were lost forever in our town. Of course, in a small Scandinavian town like ours, it was impossible to find so many new jobs in a short time. For the first 3 months, being unemployed, I received a salary from the company as usual. But after that, it became difficult because now I only had my limited savings and small monthly payments from my unemployment insurance. Those were tough times, but I hung in there. Caroline paid her expenses exactly as we had agreed, and to my surprise, did not offer or show any intention of helping me by taking on an increased share of our household expenses. Then, one horrible month, the shit hit the fan. We ran into a few unexpected problems. Expensive service for my car, the refrigerator and dishwasher broke and had to be replaced, and a high bill from my dentist. Then, worst of all, Caroline and I agreed to go to an expensive show one weekend in our capital city with Melanie and Tom, Caroline's old friends. Without speaking to me, Tom bought the tickets, express train tickets, and booked rooms in a 5-star hotel for the 4 of us. I knew for a fact that my reserves had dropped to 0, and even a small loan would be needed to pay all my bills. I had no interest in using any credit to go to a 5-star hotel and a freaking show, nor did I want to use any part of my last reserve, stock in a profitable company that I intended to save for more important things if my house got into real trouble. So I had no choice, and I couldn't afford to go to this show. I told Caroline that I couldn't afford this trip and we should skip it. She went into a rage and screamed, "No way in hell! It's not my problem if you can't afford to go and have to stay home. But I want to see this show, and I'm going with Melanie and Tom, that's for sure." I expected Caroline to offer me some economic help with my problem on this trip, but since she made no attempt, I decided to swallow my pride and ask her, "You know how much I have to pay this month for all these unexpected expenses? But if you really want me to go to the show with you, could you please pay for my share of the trip and I'll pay you for the same trip when I get a job again?" I asked her. Her cold answer really surprised me. "I expected you to freak out, so I already talked to Tom and he promised to sell your ticket to someone else." So you're going to the show without me instead of staying home with me or taking care of helping me out when I had temporary economic problems? We've turned into a very cute couple, haven't we? Tom says you still have until tomorrow to find the money. I'm sure you can fix it somehow if you really want to come with me, Caroline said in a cold voice. Okay, I get it. You don't care about me. I'll take that as your final decision that you and I won't be doing anything together anymore. It's time to settle our damn problems once and for all. I said, rushed to my car and drove off. She ran after me, yelling something I couldn't hear. Some distance from my house, I parked my car and tried to calm down and think about the situation. Caroline and I had lived together for a little over 9 years. We had a child together, and we were planning to get married in a big wedding on our 10th anniversary. Caroline and I were doing well as long as I had a well-paying job and a good life. Probably not a good enough life, because my savings should have been much higher to help get me through unexpected hard times like now. What struck me most was that now that I was having some temporary economic problems, it was obvious that, in Caroline's opinion, I wasn't worth a damn. No doubt she now thought of me as nothing more than a poor bastard who could cause her economic problems. Even her interest in our sex life had suffered from the current situation. It took me only a few minutes to decide what I should do to solve our problems with Caroline. I went to visit Melanie and Tom. They seemed a little surprised to see me, so after some polite small talk, I immediately said to Tom, "I can't afford to pay for the tickets, and Caroline refuses to help me do it, so I'm coming to you about this weekend trip. I'm going to skip the weekend trip and ditch the greedy bitch who lives in my house. However, she will go with you, but without me. As a matter of fact, she even told me that you've already found her some stallion as a replacement for me." "Who is he?" Melanie said. "Caroline has a lot of money, and I can't understand why she's doing this to you. I'm sorry we can't help you in this matter because even we have a lot of unexpected expenses after moving into this new house. Tom's old friend, Michael Gilman, has promised to buy your share and join us." I shouted, "This bloody prodigal is courting Caroline and will spend the night with her in a hotel room after dinner and lots of wine. Does Caroline know who's replacing me?" "Yes, and she's fine," said Tom. "Who suggested that horny rat to accompany Caroline? Isn't he married?" That was my next question. "He's a nice guy who has an unfair reputation. I met him by chance. He agreed to buy your ticket tomorrow if you didn't, and Caroline agreed." Tom explained. "I lost my job, but not my pride. You can bet that my economic problem is only temporary, and I can promise you that our 9 years together with that now shameless slut Caroline will get a permanent solution tonight. She can have her damn lavish wedding, but it will be without me. Be sure of that." I told them in a loud voice, and I could see in their faces that they hadn't expected such a harsh reaction from me. Tom understood my anger and tried to calm me down by saying, No, it's not what you think. Michael and I will live in one room and the girls in another. That's the agreement. You can take my word for it that nothing bad will happen to Caroline and Michael." "Do you two really think I'm an idiot for believing such bloody nonsense? Do you really believe that a seasoned woman hunter like Michael Gilman would pass up such a great opportunity to screw Caroline? She's pissed at me because I'm in economic trouble, which is why she'd rather go there with him. But I can promise you I don't give a shit if my whore Caroline's ex hooks up with him. She might even attract new customers from the nearby whore street. I think it's a good time to call Michael's wife for a friendly chat," I said, before asking if they still had any cardboard boxes left after moving into the new house. Melanie said, "Please calm down. It's not as bad as it looks. Tom and I can swear and promise you that Caroline won't do anything stupid. Why do you need boxes? Michael Gilman's bloody whore is getting out of my house. If I agreed to that without kicking her out of my house, I'd be a real laughingstock amongst all my friends. Never, damn it, never. Can I leave her things in your garage while you're away? Otherwise, they will be stored on your lawn." Melanie objected loudly to my intentions of kicking Caroline out of my house, but Tom gave me 10 folded cardboard boxes and a spare key to their garage. I got the feeling that he was really enjoying the situation. I knew Caroline had gotten the call about my plans as soon as I left Melanie and Tom, and I expected an angry Caroline to meet me at the door. Instead, I found her crying at the kitchen table. As soon as she saw me, she started sobbing. I'm sorry. Please forgive me for being stupid and selfish. I'm really ashamed of what I said before you left. Please forgive me." Of course I understand the problems, and of course we are a family that will fix everything together. I've already told Melanie that we're going on this trip together and she doesn't have to worry about any payment. Tom must have been stupid to offer your ticket to Michael, but please believe me that it wasn't my choice. Melanie and Tom didn't tell me who wanted to buy your ticket. Please believe me and forgive me. Tom told me a whole different story about that damn ticket. Feel free to go to your damn show with that gigolo all you want, but you must be an incredibly naive bitch if you think that after a few drinks you can share a bed with one of the most successful-looking women in our city for an entire night without being tempted by sex. Please spare me any further nonsense and lies because I don't give a shit about what you do anymore. Enough is enough. I've had enough shit from you and I can't take it anymore. Now she started crying loudly, and after a while she sobbed. Please forgive me for everything I said and did. I love you, only you, and please come to this show with me, but if you don't go, I won't go. Hell no. I'm not going to that damn show or anywhere else with your damn so-called friends, and I don't care where you go or what kind of lustful harlot you go with. You really wanted to humiliate me amongst all my friends and acquaintances by spending the night with Michael Gilman. As I said to Melanie and Tom, I lost my job, but not my pride. Why the hell are you sharing a bed with me if you don't care about me and my feelings? Caroline skipped the trip and stayed home with me, but it was a cold weekend, although she did her best to cheer me up. It later came to my attention that Michael Gilman was bragging to his friends that his old buddy Tom had set him up with a great married girl. They were going to stay at a nice hotel during a weekend trip when his wife was at the spa. Subsequently, when his friends teased him about being a dreamer because the married woman didn't go, and he went there with his brother instead, he got pissed. Rumor had it that Michael then promised his friends that he would have the last laugh and screw that married girl another time instead. When I told Caroline about Michael's bragging and promises, she laughed and promised me that it wouldn't happen, at least not before the Sahara Desert turned into a swamp. After a while, I calmed down, but I still had serious doubts about Caroline's love. She really begged me to give her a second chance. To my surprise, she even, without any argument, accepted my condition that Melanie and Tom should never be invited to our home, and certainly not to our wedding and wedding reception. Less than a month after our argument about going to the show, I got a new well-paying job, and Caroline celebrated by taking me on a romantic weekend trip to Paris. For good reason, she paid for everything: airfare, hotel, and a great show at the Moulin Rouge. We had a good and very romantic time together with great sex. Caroline pretended to be French and did many of the things they are famous for. A great trip indeed, but I got the feeling that our relationship would never return to the level it was before the canceled weekend trip with Melanie and Tom. I was right on that point, and a month later, Caroline gave me the following surprise. On Saturday morning, she told me that she and Melanie had arranged to go shopping in our county capital. It's about 80 kilometers from our town, and she needed our car for this trip. She would be without the kids. This surprised me, and I asked, "Why this time without children? You and Melanie always go shopping with the kids, and I'm sure Alice needs something." "Because Melanie will be buying Tom's birthday present, and we will visit a lot of fancy stores during a busy day. It would be too boring for the kids." Our car was actually my car because I paid for it, so I asked, "Why my car? Both Melanie and Tom have cars. Why should I pay Melanie's expenses for a gift for her freaking creepy husband? The man who did everything he could to set you up with his buddy Michael Gilman? Because Melanie's car is out of commission and Tom has important things to do, and don't worry about gas, we'll pay for it," she said in an arrogant voice. She was better dressed than usual for a shopping trip, and even a little more makeup than usual. That, along with my Melanie shopping car, gave me a strange feeling that something might be wrong. As Caroline went to the bathroom before leaving, I thought of a simple trick and turned off the ringtone on Caroline's cell phone. As I followed Caroline to the door, I noticed that she was wearing high heels. No sane woman would wear high heels during the day in an old downtown with lots of cobblestones. I put my arm around her and said, "I have a strong feeling that what you are going to do today is really stupid and wrong. I can't stop you from going where you're going, but please don't jeopardize our wedding by going out with Michael Gilman today." She turned ash gray and left without further comment. I checked Tom online and learned that his 38th birthday was 71 days early. Hardly an occasion for a big celebration with valuable gifts, I thought. Living in a small town has many advantages, but also some disadvantages. Even regular people can know a lot about each other, and there are even those whose main interest is to know a lot about friends and acquaintances. After the canceled weekend trip, I started using every source available to find out anything about Melanie, Tom, and Michael. I knew that Michael Gilman had had his driver's license revoked for 3 months for speeding. Then I even got some useful, nasty gossip about Melanie, which I had no intention of spreading unless Tom and his wife tried to ruin my relationship with Caroline. About 20 minutes after Caroline left, I pretended I couldn't find Alice's favorite outfit that she wanted to wear to the birthday party later that day and called Melanie on her cell phone. She answered immediately. To my surprise, I could hear her daughter and Tom arguing in the background for a few seconds, and it was obvious that she had rushed into the other room and closed the door behind her. Now I realized that something was really wrong, and Melanie wasn't in the car because I couldn't hear Caroline's favorite music from the car stereo. It was obvious that Melanie and Caroline were not together. However, I pretended that everything was fine and said, "Caroline's cell phone doesn't seem to be working for some reason. Could you give her your phone for a few seconds because I have a very important matter I need to ask her about?" "Sorry, but we are at a gas station at this very moment because Caroline had some tummy problems and needed to go to the ladies' room. But I'll tell her to call me as soon as she gets back," Melanie told me in a slightly concerned voice. No doubt Caroline was alone or with someone else doing something I wasn't supposed to know, and Melanie was at her house covering for her. But the cell phone being turned off created an unexpected problem for them. It didn't take some Einstein to guess what Caroline was into. Betting on Michael Gilman would be a game of ironclad odds. What could Melanie do? Call Caroline without getting an answer. If Caroline was with Michael and Melanie didn't know his number, it would take her some time to get his number from Tom and call Michael. Melanie did a good job because 8 minutes later, Caroline called me. After we figured out my reason for calling her, I said, "Please pass the phone to Melanie because I have some important things to say about Tom's present." Now Caroline seemed concerned when she said, "She's in the ladies' room at the gas station. I'll ask you to call her back when she gets back." What the hell are you really doing camped out at a damn gas station just outside of town? Aren't you going shopping or do you have other plans? Caroline disconnected the call, and Melanie called me 5 minutes later. I told her, "It's obvious you and Caroline aren't together. Where the hell is she? I can bet you're at home and she's in some run-down hotel sleeping with that goddamn whoremonger Michael Gilman at this very moment. If you and she are together, please give her your phone for a few seconds. Otherwise, there's no doubt I'm right." Melanie's short answer was, "Go to hell." I didn't go there, but I did call Tom. Melanie admitted that she was covering for Caroline, who was pretending to go shopping with her. But I bet Caroline is with Michael Gilman at this very moment. It's high time you cut the crap and tell me the whole truth. Tom replied, "Chill out, dude. Why should I care what your whore is doing? Because I do care about your whore wife. Ask her why Anders Janten is bragging about getting her 2 years ago during their union conference trip to that famous West Coast spa. Tom and I weren't friends, and since I canceled the weekend trip, we haven't even spoken. He was trying to set Caroline up with his friend Michael and was currently involved in Caroline's affairs. In my opinion, he couldn't blame me for telling him the truth about his wife, even though he refused to tell me the truth about my spouse. 10 minutes later, an enraged Melanie called me and accused me of ruining her happy marriage. I told her that the only thing I had done was to get even for helping Caroline cancel my planned wedding. If she had told me right away about Caroline and Michael during my first call to her, she would still be a happy wife. Then she yelled, "Go to hell and take your damn whore and illegitimate child with you." That phrase hit me hard, really hard. I called Caroline's cell phone, and now she answered the phone. I asked her, "Melanie just called me and told me that Alice is an illegitimate child. Is that true?" She must have been in shock because she screamed, "Why did she tell you that?" "I guess because you and Michael Gilman ruined even her marriage. Why don't you ask her?" After calling Michael Gilman's wife, I got his cell phone number and the information that he was playing golf. I called the number, and when Michael answered, I told him, "Caroline Stillman's husband is looking for you with a shotgun." Those 2 calls should calm the 2 lovebirds down for a while. I found a private lab online and ordered a DNA test kit. Caroline came home less than half an hour later and yelled at me. "Are you out of your mind, threatening Michael Gilman with a shotgun and accusing Melanie and me of cheating?" "Shotgun? What shotgun? I never had a shotgun." Tom teased me about living with a cheating whore. He didn't care about our relationship when he accepted that his own wife supported you in your cheating today. He had to pay, as some holy men say, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Don't blame me. I'm the victim in this goddamn shit. Michael Gilman's wife got very angry when I told her what I knew about Caroline and her husband. She said Michael had had a few chances and now it was going to be the end for him. Then our neighbor, Dan Olson, who is something of a department head for the local police department, rang our doorbell and asked if he could come in for a little chat. I had no objections and we sat down at the kitchen table. He asked me if I had been out hunting, and I told him the truth that I had stayed home all morning with the baby because Caroline had taken our car for a shopping trip with her friend Melanie Linden. I then told the truth again that hunting was not my passion, and I had never owned any guns and had no plans to buy any. He said he had gotten the wrong information, but we could go hunting together from time to time if I was interested. After a brief conversation with Caroline and Alice, he left. It was obvious that my call to Michael Gilman had scared the hell out of him and made him call the police. Dan was smart enough to do a discreet check instead of sending in the whole cavalry. Caroline continued to grumble about why I told Tom about Melanie's one-time crush on Anders Yanton. I told her, "You ignored my warning about your date with Michael Gilman, even though you knew it would end our relationship. The only thing I can say is thank you so much for all the good times we had together during our 9 years together, and I'm sorry you ended it in such a messy way. You can live in a spare room until you find your own apartment somewhere, and feel free to have that Gilman bunny as long as you want, but not in this house." She didn't expect this from me, cried, and rushed into the bedroom. After a while, when she had calmed down a bit, she came back and sobbed. "You can't do this to me. Please believe me, because the truth is that I have never had sex with him or anyone else but you since we met. You're overreacting for no reason at all." "I'm sorry, Caroline, but I can't marry or live with a woman I can't trust. You lied to me about going shopping with Melanie, and you immediately followed Michael Gilman in my car after I warned you of the consequences. Both Melanie and Tom admitted that you went out with him today. Why the hell do you keep lying to me about this?" Still sobbing, she replied, "Please believe me, Michael is just a friend, and yes, I did meet him tonight, but I never had sex with him, that's for sure." "Maybe you haven't, but only because I put an end to 2 of your attempts, that's all. Going to the show with him was too weird to be a serious attempt, but you had everything planned out much better tonight. Your minor mistakes convinced me that shopping was not part of your intentions for the day, but the old saying goes, you get it right on the 3rd try. So it's time to give up on our relationship before you have any chance of making it happen." "Please don't do this to me. I have never cheated on you, and I promise to be your faithful wife if you give me a chance to show it," Caroline said. "I've regretted several times that we didn't break up when you were going to go to that damn show and spend the night at the hotel with Michael Gilman. You used my temporary lack of money as an excuse to go with him, and wanted to do it as if for economic reasons. If you had wanted to do that, you could have afforded to pay for this trip for at least 100 people without any trouble. But you refused to help the man you claimed to want to marry, even though he begged me to help him solve his temporary problem. I gave you a second chance, even though your intentions to go on the show with Michael hurt. But today's mess with him was the last straw. I'm probably not even Alice's father. I'm ashamed and sorry for my actions while you were unemployed, and I never complained that you refused to go to that show. You've been my only love since we met, and of course Alice is your daughter. A woman who loves her boyfriend and fiancé would never lie to him or book a hotel date with a jerk like Michael Gilman. You went behind my back. What about our wedding? Don't you care about what we agreed to? I've already booked a lot of things," she exclaimed. "Michael Gilman will probably be dumped by his wife, so you can safely marry him instead of me." Caroline ruined our grand wedding plans we had planned for our 10-year anniversary. She had already booked the church, the Rolls-Royce, and a very popular hotel for the reception. It was one of the worst days of my life, and I felt like a pile of crap. My decision had been made, and there would be no third chance. My and Caroline's breakup was irrevocable, and nothing could stop it. Thus ended a once-in-a-lifetime happy family relationship. I will never deny that it felt like hell. Caroline was a beautiful girl with many good qualities, and that's why I will be sorely missed, but I couldn't put up with her attempts to cheat. I knew a lot of people would think I was a jerk for not forgiving Caroline for her failed, naive attempts with Michael Gilman, but I had already forgiven her intention to go on a weekend trip with Michael once. A few days later, Caroline confessed what she was doing with Michael Gilman, and I was right about him. He worked hard on her and sent her a large bouquet of roses at work with a card apologizing if his interest in the weekend trip had caused her any problems. A week after that, he invited her to lunch. After that, they had lunch together once or twice a week. Of course, the lunches started out as innocent encounters with pleasant small talk, but their feelings for each other gradually developed into some kind of sexual desire that they couldn't deny and didn't want to stop. One problem was Michael's revoked driver's license, and that was why Caroline had to take the car. Michael booked a room at a small hotel that he had used before. Caroline said she started regretting all of this already at our door when I warned her about canceling the wedding if she dated Michael Gilman. She told him I suspected her of cheating on him and wanted to call it off, but Michael, who had already paid for the room, convinced her to go ahead. So she did. The room wasn't ready when they got to the hotel, so they went to a coffee shop where they got a call from a concerned Melanie, who suggested she cancel. When Caroline called me and I asked her to give the phone to Melanie, she began to fear the worst. And when she called Melanie to call me back, Melanie yelled at her, "Skip the damn date and go home before it's too late." She wanted to do that, but Michael refused to go. So they started arguing until Melanie called again and told her that I had found out exactly what she was up to. A furious Michael began to realize that all his plans for sex were falling apart. Now even Caroline had lost her temper and told him she was sorry as hell for agreeing to this damn date with the high risk of canceling her wedding and breaking up the family relationship. Then a completely insane Melanie called again and screamed that I had ruined her marriage. My final call asking if Alice was a child out of wedlock made Caroline scream in frustration and run for the car. Then there was the call to Michael warning him that I was after him with a shotgun. That call scared him, and he didn't dare go home with Caroline in her car, so he took a cab. A crying Caroline said that she would never in the rest of her life be able to understand why she didn't stop her stupid date when she still could have saved her wedding and future with me and Alice. Then shit really hit me when I got the results of the DNA test that said A and B weren't related, but A and C were. In other words, Caroline is Alice's mother, but her father is not me. I decided it was best to contact a lawyer before discussing this with Caroline. Now that there was nowhere to go, Caroline preferred to confess to me at home, rather than in court, about how she got pregnant and who did it. She wasn't on the pill. We were doing everything we could to get her pregnant. She was at a conference at the time, and after a fun party spent the night with Nicholas Albertson, a handsome married man, father of 3. Neither Caroline nor I ever suspected that I was not Alice's father. My attorney began a long legal process to get Nicholas Albertson to return my money and take over the payments until Alice turned 18 or 25 if she got a college education. Joint custody of Alice was out of the question, but Caroline and I agreed that Alice could see me as much as she wanted and would keep her room in my house. I wasn't her real father, but I was the only father she knew, and I would always be there for her. It wasn't Alice's fault her mom was a whore. Tom took Melanie's cheating with resentment very hard indeed. After Melanie's confession, he went straight to Anders Janten and beat the crap out of him, sending him to the hospital for a week. Since Tom's revenge was witnessed by Janten's wife and his 2 children, Tom didn't escape a few months in jail. Caroline earned the new nickname Divorce Queen because her failed attempts to cheat on me with Michael Gilman resulted in 5 divorces, which, at least in our town, was a record. The divorcees were Melanie and Tom, Nicholas Albertson, Alice's father, and his wife, Melanie's lover Anders Janten, and his wife, Michael Gilman and his wife, and of course, Caroline and me. I imagine it will be a tough time for all involved, although time will probably heal the wounds sooner or later. After all, We are not alone with this experience these days. Almost half the population has gone through a divorce. There was no winner in my family but 3 losers, and I was very sorry for the problems we created for Alice. Alice continued to spend more time with me in her old house than in Caroline's new apartment. She paid a high price for what Caroline had done. From what I was told, Caroline hoped I would forgive her and take her back. I wasn't feeling too good myself after all the crap I'd been involved in such a short time. Losing my job, economic problems, trying to cheat Caroline, breaking up with her, and, worst of all, having it thrown in my face that I wasn't being a father to my daughter. Although I'm getting several invitations from interested women, I haven't dated anyone yet, probably because I'm still mourning my lost family, and it hurts like hell. Upon much reflection, I can't understand how Caroline could be so passionate about dating a fucking dog like Michael Gilman, that she, even after my grave warnings, didn't hesitate to take a chance and throw away our wedding and everything we had together. One of the strange mysteries in this sad story is that now that both Caroline and Michael are free and living on their own, they have lost all interest in each other and are not seeing each other at all. The only thing I am sure of is that although Caroline Steelman is a lovely girl, she will never be my wife.